Well, I got me a new camera. Got one that works for my PC, my deer stand, and my scooter that gets me around. So, just testing and see how it works. Seems to be doing fine, I guess. Uh, Not too bad, I guess. I can't have it directly on top of my computer because I got the windows behind me, and the light behind the windows just kind of blurs me out, so you can't see who I am or what I'm talking about. I mean, you can hear what I'm talking about, but it seems to work just fine. I got me a digital camera. It's all right, I guess. Uh, we'll have to see on my next deer hunt. So I got a mount for it, so it'll attach to my desk, it'll attach to my scooter, it'll attach to my deer stand too. So that way, when I go to the woods, I can set it up in my deer stand. If I'm up in the stand and there's a deer, I see there. That's what it is right there because of the mount. Yeah. Well, I guess when I use it on my computer, I just have to stay sitting down until I get a better spot to put it. I can't, stick it on my computer because the windows are directly behind me. The computer camera works better for that. But, eventually I might get a tripod, that way I can put it wherever. It hooks to the Wi-Fi too, so it seems to do pretty good. The zoom works all right. It does 8K and 1080p. So let's see if the magnification don't work when it's in. So when I'm using a webcam mode, the magnification don't work. I can do live with it, but I gotta have a tripod, maybe hook it up to my Wi-Fi and see how that works. I just have to see how things go. Slow and steady wins the race. But it seems like it'll do all right. I guess maybe my next deer hunting video. I'm gonna post me a deer hunting video eventually. I got me a deer stand, a lock on stand, and lock it to the tree. And go up there and go deer hunting and get me some food. You know, Deer hunting works pretty good. For food. People don't get that anymore. I don't know. It just ain't country. Uh, you know, he that provided not for his own, those of his own house is denied the faith and is worse than infidel. So, I mean, if you can't go hunting and kill animals for food, then you couldn't have a family to begin with. So, I mean, that's like your basic necessities. Adam and Eve were kill animals for food before the tree of knowledge of good and evil. But I don't like talking about the tree of knowledge of good and evil. I don't like talking about him. You know, and tree of life, I don't need that either. Oh, you don't need the tree of life. Adam and Eve got back up from the dead. God said, "Oh, if you eat this, you're gonna die." But they got back up. So what do they need a tree of life for? Exactly, right? Uh, I guess we'll just have to see how this works. Yeah, I gotta work on that too. Yeah. Well, I ain't that young, but I'm starting to get that, and I gotta do something about that. Maybe I'll try some yoga or Pilates. That might work. See, that's the thing. I got to look at the camera. I got to look at my screen. And that's just, I'd rather have it hooked up to my computer. Maybe I'll get me some dark blinds or something. Curtains. I need curtains. Yeah. I got my house decorated though. It looks good. Yeah, it does. I got all kinds of pictures and motivation around me. You can see them a lot clearer with my camera here than you can with my computer one anyway. Yeah. Got music artists and animals and sailing and motorcycles and lots of guns and knives. So lots of things that make me happy. You know, Being happy is very important in life. So and that's why I got this here too. I got a tasting history cookbook. Oh, I love to cook. You don't mess with my kitchen. But I got tasting history cookbook by Max Miller. I tell you what, it's got some dynamite recipes. There's a bread pudding recipe right there. How about that? I love some bread pudding. But yeah, people just don't understand anymore. A man's got to be a man. So, but they just don't get it. I don't know. I think America's falling down, and they're falling down through health care. I think that's the major problem in this country. Everybody wants to run around using medical words, diagnosing people. And then they try to put religion on trial with the hospital, which don't work at all. Me, I don't like talking about religion to begin with. I just don't like it. I don't like religion. Because if my God don't defend the Constitution of the United States of America and the laws governing thereof, then he ain't my God, then is he? So, just because you don't trust somebody don't mean you can run out there and take their right to keep and bear arms. There's a lot of people that I don't trust, but I wouldn't dare steal another man's guns. You know how low that is? I mean, that is just low. I mean, if a man don't trust you, it doesn't give him a right to steal your guns. That's sinking down to a new level of low. I mean, everybody's got a right to have weapons. Everybody's got a right to be armed. You know, everybody has a right to defend themselves and their family. I mean, I'm the leader of my family. You know, if I ain't the leader of my family, I ain't gonna have one because I got a good head on my shoulders. If people don't respect me, then hey, whatever. I just won't have nothing to do with them ever again. Man's got to be a man of his word. I don't issue threats. Because if a man's gonna be a man of his word, then he issues threats. That means he's got to follow through with them, and I don't do that. I don't threaten people with bodily harm and physical damage. I never threaten nobody with a weapon. I defend the Constitution of the United States of America. But there's more than one way to defend the Constitution of the United States of America. You can join the military. You can go through litigation to defend it. Congressmen and all these people, they're always trying to amend the Constitution of the United States of America. Well, they are amending it so much that now, if the government shuts down, congressmen don't get paid. They don't get their money. It may go into escrow, and they might get something back after the government opens back up. But the government shuts down, congressmen, and all these government employees, they really don't get paid. Now, us combat veterans, that draw a pension from the government, we still get paid because they set money aside for that in case the government does shut down. But it's this country is just headed downhill slowly but surely, and sometimes it makes a big dip and falls drastically. But it's just people want to be in the politics and the religion and things like that. It's like, why can't you just learn to be human beings and be kind to one another? I mean, you don't have to trust each other, but you don't have to steal from each other, and you don't have to sabotage each other's careers and their personal lives and goals. I don't know. It just people are at each other too much for me. I don't like the violence. I was used to be in the army infantry, but that was a job. That was employment. That's defending the Constitution. Terrorists going to attack our country. I go over there and deal with the terrorists and come back home. It's simple. That's what the Department of Defense does. United States Army Infantry. We got terrorists attacking our country. We'll go over there, get rid of the terrorists, and come back home. It's simple. It's muscle memory. That's what they don't understand. We're trained to eliminate the threat and then come back home. But they don't understand that. Sometimes coming back home alive, don't happen. We lose soldiers, we lose family, but hey, their souls have gone home. That's the part of the religious part I don't like talking about. And in the book of Hebrews it says, even after a man dies upon the earth, he still has to face judgment, stand before God. You know, that's why I ain't worried about it. No man upon this earth can cast judgment upon upon me. I mean, they slander and lie Baal all they want, but that's just blasphemy as far as I'm concerned. I mean, you got to think, if somebody's running around speaking bad of you, talking bad behind your back, slander and lie Baal, that's the same thing as blasphemy. I mean, we got God inside of us. He is in I is in He, and they just don't understand that. As far as God's name goes, I don't agree with any name. My God is God. There ain't no name to Him. It's just I don't know, somebody running around out there speaking for God, they're witnessing for God, but when they're fraudulent witnesses, it becomes like the wilderness of Sinai, because the Jehovah's Witnesses were numbered in the wilderness of Sinai. So I don't speak for Jehovah because I don't have the place to speak for Jehovah. I don't speak for Jesus. I don't want nothing to do with Jesus or Jehovah or Allah or Buddha or Shiva or Vishnu or whatever their God's name is. I believe in my God. My God believes in me. But it's just I don't know. Somebody's always it seems like they're out to get you one way or another. I'm not paranoid. I don't care what they say behind my back. I'm a man of my word. I'm honest. I do what I'm supposed to do. I strive lawfully. But people always up to no good and set on mischief. And I guess eventually they'll get what they got coming to them. I ain't got to worry about it. I don't have to take law in my own hands. I don't have to worry about that. I shouldn't have to worry about that. The only thing I should have to worry about is me and my own. and striving lawfully and doing what I'm supposed to do. But somebody always want to be big brother or try to make money off of you, and that don't work. I wouldn't dare. Why would they try to make money off another human being? I mean, you can make a product and make money off a product, right? But making money off another human being, that's borderline slavery and oppression. It's like you turn capitalism into human flesh, and human flesh becomes your money. It's like slavery, you know. Now, you got to protect the people as well as the Constitution of the United States of America, but you can't protect the people. It's difficult. They got to know the law, but you can't run around preaching the law to people because then they take you as a threat. It's like, say, yeah, I know the law, but, I can't sit here and commit barratry. I can't solicit for legal action in a courtroom or an equity. I don't do that. I'm not going to represent somebody in a courtroom without a bar card. you know, it's just, I don't know. This world has become difficult and hard pressed, and it's just one thing after another, isn't it? Well, I'm glad there's people that are happy in this world. And I'm glad there's people that, won't allow themselves to be taken advantage of. But if you know you're being taken advantage of, you have to stand up and say something. You got to be a whistleblower. You got to be a tattletale. It's like, you know what? When I die and go to heaven, I'm telling on every one of you. I'm telling God everything. But my God's omniscient, so I ain't got to worry about that. My God knows everything what's going on. But sometimes you got to be a whistleblower. You got to be a tattletale. Can't breach the national security now. Can't be a Benedict Arnold. You can't be a turncoat. That's treason. Treason's illegal. Punishable by death. You be branded as a traitor and numbered with the transgressors. Just like Jesus. Jesus was a traitor. Well, that's why he was branded as a traitor and numbered with the transgressors, just like the people in Sinai, the Jehovah's Witnesses, the fraudulent witnesses. Because Jehovah had fraudulent witnesses. You're not supposed to lie. But people don't understand. You know, one day they'll catch up. But I think it's the colleges that are holding people back sometimes. They think they can lie to get ahead and get what they want, but then that lie comes back to them eventually. It's just and these sorority groups and fraternities, these gang societies. You got the Crips, you got the Bloods, you got the Alpha Betas, you got this and that. That's what it's become. You got fraternities and sororities are just like Crips and Bloods, and that's just it don't work. That don't work for me. I mean, college is a nice idea, but there's too many people that think hazing can be justified, and you can't justify hazing because there's people out there that lose their lives over that. Hazing has gone too far, especially when it enters into the medical field because it's criminal malpractice. But man, life is life, and life must go on.